doing super well.
Good. Could you introduce yourself to our viewers?
Yeah.
You can hold that. Yeah.
Cool. My name is Barry Plunkett. I'm one of the co-founders of Skip Protocol. Skip Protocol is an infrastructure company in the Cosmos and AppChain ecosystem. We're working to build better transaction infrastructure that protects users from harmful trading activity and helps them do more across more chains with fewer transactions, making Cosmos easier to use.
Awesome, thank you. So the next question is like an ice-breaking question. So what was the first coin that you bought and when was it? Why did you buy it? Can you remember?
Yeah. The first coin that I bought was definitely ETH back in 2017.
2017.
Yeah, I mean, I was in college and a lot of my friends were really excited about crypto, especially as the bubble started to really get going. And then I remember I had this one friend, Chris, who was thinking about leaving school entirely to go join a crypto company. And I had another friend who had gone and he left to go full-time trade tokens at this time. So it was all of a sudden, I'd never really heard of it, just felt very real. So I bought some ETH, but I bought it at a very bad time. Immediately tanked, and then I was like, fuck this. Like, this is not for me. And I didn't think about crypto again for another 2-3 years, really, until like 2020 and DeFi summer and those sorts of things started happening again. So not a great first trade.
All right. Okay, thank you. Could you introduce Skip Protocol to our viewers? How do you differentiate Skip Protocol from other MEV solutions?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Skip builds two main products right now. So I guess maybe first a little bit to explain what MEV is might be helpful.
Sure. Yeah.
MEV means miner extractable value, which is a really vague term, but in practice, what the problem is that when you have a blockchain, obviously you have blocks, and those blocks fill with transactions, and we run the transactions in the order that they come in to decide whose trade goes first, whose trade goes second. And so when you're building a DeFi protocol, the ordering of transactions and which transactions actually make it in and don't make it in have really significant financial consequences for people who are trading. So if you're buying some Atom on Osmosis and there are a bunch of people trying to do it and you're the first transaction in a block, then you're going to get a better price than everybody who comes after. They're going to pay higher. And so what this means is very sophisticated traders, especially validators, have the ability to harm users, to extract funds, or to just run sort of interesting, very profitable arbitrage strategies by reordering transactions or excluding certain transactions or deciding to include other ones. So sort of the classic example of bad MEV is when a user submits a trade on a DEX to buy a token like Atom on Osmosis, and a trader sees that transaction before it's been included in the block, and they go and they buy Atom in the same pool, and they put their transaction right ahead of the user, and then they have the user buy it, so they force the user to pay their max slippage, the worst price they could pay, and they sell right afterwards. So the MEV trader has basically just extracted money from the user, but hasn't provided any value to the chain. And so, as an MEV solution, we think a lot about how we can prevent those kinds of harms to the users while still helping folks do profitable, non-harmful MEV. So things like back running. So instead of sneaking and cutting in line ahead of that first user, just waiting until their trade comes in, seeing the sort of price changes that creates, and then executing an arbitrage right afterwards. Another kind of MEV, but it doesn't hurt the user. And so we try to help chains enable those things and turn those into forms of protocol-owned revenue. So how we distinguish from other MEV solutions, that can get really technical. But I'd say, in short, I think more than most MEV solutions, really focus on trying to align ourselves with what the app chain's vision is and what the community wants, and then work backwards from that instead of coming in and saying, okay, here is the way MEV is going to work on your chain, whether you like it or not. We're going to allow all of this extraction. These people are going to get hurt. That's just how it is, and you can't stop us. Because in theory, you could do that, and there are MEV teams out there that have tried to do that and do that in other ecosystems. But what we try to do is we try to talk to the community and find out, okay, like, how do you want the system to work? Do you want it to be decentralized? Do you want to enable these kinds of harmful MEV? And if you do want to have any kind of MEV, where do you want the revenue to go? Do you want it to go back to developers in the case of Archway? Do you want it to go back to the community in the case of Osmosis, or to validators or somewhere else? So we really try to align ourselves with the vision of those teams. Sorry for the super long answer.
No, it was perfect answer. You're really good at explaining things. You're really
I have a lot of practice for explaining these things.
Thank you. Okay. So what's the mission behind Skip protocol in the Interchain ecosystem?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our mission has changed a lot and grown a lot in the last year and a half that we've been around. So when we started, our mission was very focused on MEV. It was, we want to help chains prevent bad forms of MEV, and we want to help their communities profit from less harmful forms of MEV. So turn it into protocol revenue. And we did that in a variety of ways with some things we deployed to Osmosis, and some on-chain modules we're deploying to 10, 15, 20 other Cosmos chains over the course of this year, called Protocol and Builder, POB. So that's, we're continuing to do a lot of work there. But what we've realized is that MEV is only one of the problems that Cosmos users have with the transaction lifecycle. And it sort of happens at the end, right? You make your transaction, it's going into a block, and now there's this question of, okay, am I going to get a good price? Am I going to get a bad price? Is somebody going to extract MEV from me? So we still care about that, but there's lots of problems that arise much earlier than that we've encountered just as users of Cosmos, and wallets and chains have made us aware of. So, we talk to wallets a lot, and we went to wallets a long time ago and we said, hey, we can help your users recapture MEV from their swaps. We're going to do this fancy arbitrage backrunning thing. And they were like, we don't need that. They were like, we need to help our users make cross-chain swaps. We need to help make it easier for them to do transfers across chains and not have to worry so much about what IBC is and how it works and have to select channels. And we don't want them to have to move their tokens to Osmosis to do a swap on Osmosis, or to move their tokens off the hub. They should just be able to sort of say, I want this to happen, and make it happen in one transaction. And so we said, okay, we're going to shelve some of the MEV recapturing ideas that we had for them. And instead, we're just going to help these wallets by building APIs that make Cosmos feel more like one chain, even though there are many, many chains. We wanted to help wallets and front ends give their users the ability to do more with fewer transactions. We wanted them to be able to just say, hey, this is the token I have, this is the chain that it's on, and this is the token that I want and the chain I want to go to, and just make it happen. So you don't have to worry about bridging, you don't have to worry about IBC, you don't have to worry about gas in these different chains, how it happens, it just happens. And so now we're much more focused on these questions of UX, because they're clearly the first order questions right now. They're the ones that matter the most today. And then as we help address these problems, this is going to create more opportunities for MEV and the need for more protection from it. So we still see that, and that's still really important to chains like Osmosis that have a lot of financial activity right now. We still spend a lot of our time there. For the vast majority of chains, for the vast majority of dApps and front ends, problems are simpler, and those are the ones that we're really working on, is these UX problems now.
Thank you so much. Could you tell us about the packet forwarding middleware that Keplr is working on, and what problem does it solve?
Yeah, that's a great question. The answer might get a little technical, so I'll try to keep it not so technical. The way IBC connects a bunch of different Cosmos chains. IBC is just this bridging protocol. You submit a transaction on one chain that says, I want to move my tokens to this other chain, and IBC makes that happen.
Right.
And it uses basically roads that are set up between particular chains, and each road is called a channel. So we have these channels, which are roads that connect chains, and because we have so many chains, we have this super dense network of roads, right?
Yeah.
So every chain is basically connected to every other chain. You've got 50 roads going between all of them. Really more, because people can make more permissionlessly. So you sometimes have 4, 5, 6 roads connecting just 2 chains, just repeatedly, unnecessarily. And if you were driving a car, this would be fine. You wouldn't really care. You'd actually probably like it because you could go wherever. You could just drive around. All of the different cities are connected. It's great. Very dense highway network. But with bridges, it creates problems, because when you transfer your tokens over one of these roads, they basically get marked. They get tagged, saying, hey, I came from, road 1, road 2. And then, so if I go over 2 different roads, then I have 2 different tokens, right? Even if before it was Atom, if I go to Osmosis over channel 1, or I go to Osmosis over channel 2, then when I get to Osmosis, these are not the same. And only one of them is going to be useful, probably. So only, for example, on Osmosis, only Atom transferred over a very particular road from the hub is actually useful. You can do anything with it. Atom transferred over the road that connects to Juno. So if somebody took their Atom from the hub, they brought it to Juno, and then they brought it to Osmosis, it's useless. You can't, it's worse than not having anything, because you're stuck there oftentimes. So, and this is something that people encounter all the time when they come into Cosmos. So they'll go over Axelar, and they'll bridge their Axel ETH into Juno, and then they'll be like, oh, there's no liquidity here for this, I have to get to Osmosis, and then they'll take the road from Juno to Osmosis, but this is the wrong road. They should have gone directly from Axelar, but you have no way of knowing this. It's like a weird, obscure detail of IBC, but it matters a lot, because then you have all of these useless tokens flying around. Yeah. And so what packet forward middleware does is it allows us to basically construct transfers between chains that hop over more than one road. So I can say, all right, I have my Atom on Juno, and in one transaction, I'm going to hop back to the hub, and then I'm going to hop to Osmosis. And so even though I can't take the road directly from Juno to Osmosis with my Atom, I can still get there in one transaction. I just need somebody to help me form that transaction. Right. So that's what a lot of the API work that we were doing before helps. It's sort of like the GPS for all of these different IBC roads. So wallets will basically, if a user says, hey, I have Atom on Juno, I want to go Osmosis, a wallet will ping our endpoint and say, hey, what sequence of roads should they actually take to get there? What's the right route? And we'll tell them, and then they create the transaction that goes back through the hub and goes to Osmosis. And packet forward middleware is what lets us do that in one transaction. We're forwarding the packet from the hub to Osmosis, but that's the why.
Right. Thank you so much. Wow, that was really informative.
Helpful?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Skip just started working with dYdX on MEV prevention. So how does Skip plan on preventing MEV on dYdX?
This is a great question. So maybe I should start by quickly explaining what dYdX is and what MEV on dYdX would look like, and then talk about how we're thinking about preventing it. It'll be fast. So dYdX is a perpetuals exchange.
Yeah.
So it's basically, you can just think of it as an order book. So an order book where every token is paired against USDC pretty much. So there's an ETH USDC pair, there's Bitcoin USDC pair, all of these kinds of things. And people are putting in orders to buy and sell. And what makes dYdX unique is this order book is not on chain. So the protocol is not coming to agreement about what the correct sequence of orders is.
Right.
What happens instead is each time a block is proposed, the proposing validator says, here are the orders from my mempool. These are the ones that matched. This is the price that each of these users is going to buy or sell at. And so the validator has sort of unique power to manipulate that before they show the other validators what the matches are. And so what that means is, as a validator, I can basically make free money by doing some of these sort of harmful MEV things that we were talking about before. I can just, I can see that at the end of, after all of these orders clear, the price of this asset is going to go up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just insert my own order to buy it very early on. I'm going to force everybody else to match, and then I'm just going to sell into the buy order that I saw come in at a very high price. And so I'm effectively just stealing money all the time from everybody using the protocol. And I'm uniquely capable of doing that because everybody else is just trusting me to have the orders. So what you call you're calling it like an in-mempool order book as opposed to an on-chain order book. And it has a lot of advantages too. You make things much faster. You can make things much more responsive to the kinds of high-frequency trading strategies that folks like to run on these exchanges. A lot of people, dYdX, I think, yesterday maybe did, or last week, I can't remember the stat, did $800 million of volume. So dYdX in its current form does more volume than Ethereum does in a day. It's massive, and it's because it's being used by very sophisticated high-frequency traders who they need responsiveness, and so they don't like it when you put the order book on chain. They want to actually see it in the mempool. Comes with these extra problems. So how do we plan on preventing this? It's very difficult to do directly. So the approach that we're taking with a lot of the folks affiliated with the dYdX Foundation is one that's mostly driven by social norms and awareness initially. So eventually we'll try to do things with the protocol that will reduce the validator's power. But before then, what we're going to try to do is basically build a dashboard that will make it possible for people to go and look up a validator and say, okay, are you doing anything suspicious? Like we're going to have a statistic that'll try to summarize how weird their order book looks compared to other validators, basically. So you'll be able to say, okay, like this validator in the last week has had an order book that looks nothing like any of the other validators, nothing like our sort of monitoring nodes. There's not going to be any direct slashing behind this, but the community will be aware that people are doing something suspicious that's potentially harmful to the long-term health and longevity of the protocol. And then the other thing that we're trying to do, the dYdX team is trying to do, is really emphasize some of the stuff that makes Cosmos, I think, unique in crypto, which is that each of these chains does have a very dedicated community behind it. And what that means is the validators, like Cosmostation, are usually very aligned with helping these protocols survive in the long term. They're not trying to make as much money as they can next week by extracting MEV. They're thinking about themselves as missionaries of the protocol who are trying to make money in the long term by supporting it and helping the token price and helping the long-term usage of the protocol and the long-term fee capture. So the other thing that we're trying to do is just work with the dYdX team to make that narrative a bigger part of their validator selection and testing criteria. And that's, I think, is really successful because Cosmos has a lot of really great validators. And it's something that people in the Ethereum community, I think, get wrong about Cosmos, which is in Ethereum, it's always maximal extraction all the time. In Cosmos, it's not the case. There's actually alignment, which is really important. So that's how we're thinking about things now. And then longer term, there's going to be more research on the protocol side to try to make it more resistant to MEV in the first place, as opposed to just doing sort of social prevention.
Thank you
Was
so
that-
much. Yeah, yeah, we covered all the questions we got. So thanks for joining the interview. I feel like this interview session will be really helpful for like beginners in cryptocurrency in general, because you're so well spoken, and I'm learning. I'm
I
also
hope so.
learning. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys.